There are two new heroes in Fortnite Save the World. I'll be reviewing both of them at the same time today because they kind of work really well together, and I'm not really sure that Flutter is going to do well in her own loadout. We did some testing. Archer ran a full build trying to get the most out of her, and she was pretty unable to kill like basic husks. I might be wrong about that. Maybe she's worth a feature. I was wrong about Snowstrike, but I'm going to be covering them at the same time today. This is going to be more of a critique on Goin Constructor than anything else. So let's talk about our commander, Hotwire. He gives you a hammer strike that causes chain lightning every single time you hit anything in Goin Constructor. That is really, really good. However, that chain lightning is nature, which is tricky, but if you raise your shield for 2 seconds, it'll overcharge your next swing, and you'll do energy damage to 8 enemies instead of 3. So it's energy instead of nature, and it's 8 enemies instead of 3. Pretty strong, but 2 seconds of standing there holding up a shield is a long time in a fight, and I don't love it, and it is really, really, really clunky. So we're going to be talking about Goin Constructor today. I'm going to have a lot of critique for Epic. Now, the team perk we are required to use is Happy Holidays. If you want to have any chance of actually using your ability somewhat frequently, you are going to be required to use Happy Holidays because the cooldown is 100 seconds. Now, the Goin Constructor ability is only up for 16 seconds, and that can be boosted to 10 seconds with our first support perk, Director Riggs. He pretty much needs to be involved in Goin Constructor because 10 extra seconds is just too good to pass up. You need to use it. And that is my very first critique. So I am going to be showing gameplay probably now. We're going to be doing live comm. You'll see this footage later on as well. But this is my first major problem with Goin Constructor. You are slow and clunky. It is very, very common that you will kill a crowd of enemies in front of you and they'll just be gone now. Or they are up on the ledge in front of you and you cannot reach them. In my opinion, if you're going to restrict my movement so heavily that an enemy can just back up slowly and negate my entire ability, it needs to have some serious punch, and it kind of doesn't. This is pretty strong. The chain lightning is pretty good. It does a decent job. I like the perk. I want everybody to know I'm a fan of this concept. However, I believe, like with Rosie overheating in the past, I suggested on Reddit that maybe it just doesn't need to overheat. It already had damage drop off and limited ammo. Overheating just gave us a needless, gave it a needless nerf. And Epic agreed. They removed the overheating on that, and that's actually what I'm suggesting right now. I don't know of an ability that literally has no cooldown, but I don't think Goin Constructor needs a cooldown. You are, as I mentioned, already very slow and limited in movement, and it does pretty decent damage, but to be able to chase an enemy with this ability, you have to just throw it away and wait 40 plus seconds before your ability comes back. That is insane, especially when you consider that there is no perk in the game that actively reduces the cooldown. The only thing that you kind of have is Black Knight Garridan, where hardware eliminations reduce that cooldown by 1 second. I don't know if you guys have ever used a hardware, but with an optimal loadout boosting the damage as far as possible, it's pretty not great. It's bad. It's you know, like if you guys have never seen me use hardware much, it's because every time I give it a chance, I just couldn't do damage. And in a build like this, I am compensating so much for the cooldown with Director Riggs and Black Knight Garridan that I am using 2 out of my 5 support perks, not actually really boosting the damage of my hardware. Now, I have a better impact, but that's not even good if you consider the fact that you're knocking an enemy away from you. I need the enemy right here so I can kill them, so I can reduce the cooldown. I don't need them flying back. Granted, in times of high stress, when you're being surrounded by lots of enemies, that impact can be useful as it can save you from certain situations, but I would rather the enemy die than be knocked back. You know, that's just my opinion. There are some other melees in this game, like swords, that do a really, really good job of killing what's in front of you, and that is what's required here. If you're going to give me a 1 second cooldown reduction per kill, a sword, that might make sense, but it needs to be like a 10-second reduction for hardwares, and that's just my first critique. I think Goin Constructor should have no cooldown. That would free up your support slot so that you don't need to use Director Riggs or Black Knight Garridan. I understand Director Riggs would be like useless, but maybe he could stack up, you know, Goin Constructor damage or something. He could be tweaked. He doesn't need to be useless. That'd be a great hero to have in support. The other thing that would change is if you had no cooldown, you wouldn't need Happy Holidays. This is a perk that adds nothing to your build. All it does is allow you to use your perk more often. And in a perfect scenario where you use Director Riggs, you get 10 eliminations, not a guaranteed thing. You have a 26-second uptime. That shaves off 26 from 60, so you've got a 34-second cooldown. Not too bad. And then you run off and you get like 15 or 20 kills with your hardware. Again, difficult to do while staying alive. Then you finally can use your perk again, which is practically like a 2/3 or a 50% uptime. So every number that Hotwire is sporting for damage, you you can almost cut it in half because half the time he's doing nothing at all. That is really, really tough. And when I'm not in Goin Constructor and I'm not taking advantage of his ability, it means that I'm not using perks that are boosting the damage of my melee, so it's really, really tough. You essentially are required in this build to use Arlene Iza. This isn't a critique. I'm just moving on with my loadout. The Chain Lightning does heal you. She's a fantastic support perk. It's really, really good. She keeps you alive nice and easy. And then I had to do something to increase the hardware damage. There are a lot of options here. You could do a lot of things. You could use Fleet to counteract that movement debuff. I mean, they did make Goin Constructor faster. Even with the shield up, you walk quicker. It's not enough in my opinion, but hardware damage by 17% barely made a difference. I considered Steel Wool Sid, where the kinetic overload damage could go up by 50%. For those who don't know Constructors very well, kinetic overload activates and it does melee knockbacks and staggers trigger it, dealing 25 base energy damage to nearby enemies. And after crit hits, it increases impact for 5 seconds. Once again, knocking enemies further away from you instead of killing them. And I've seen kinetic overload activate. It's not usually enough to kill, and it has never been a build that has impressed me. I've tried it a few times in the past. So you could also use Guardian Bowl for that extra crit rating, but the Storm King's Fury is the weapon I was using, and it had a 43% chance to crit already. That's fine. However, I am going to be using him in support for this gameplay here, and you've probably been seeing because AS407, melee expert in our community, recommended using the Husk Stomper. That'll be the correct element for our season. Attack speed crit rating will allow me to crit more than half the time, and that explosion should do a pretty substantial amount. So that's something I want to try out. And I also want to move on with more Goin Constructor critiques that I'll probably echo throughout this recording, but I want to say it here. I think, as we're talking about impact, when you are in the Goin Constructor state, there should be no player knockback from enemies. There are so many times when I was trying to kill a Smasher or a Fatty, and they would knock me back, and the slow animation of the swing speed of Goin Constructor prevented me from actually participating in the game. Remember, I'm on a timer here. Goin Constructor is up for 16 seconds, and I only get 1 second per kill. If you're going up against a big enemy like a Mist Monster, you're just not going to have that Director Riggs uptime, so you have 16 seconds, 8 of which can be easily spent getting knocked around. I am a big, clunky Goin Constructor. I have my shield. I have my hammer. Why can I get knocked around by anything? I am really into the Cradle book series, and Zeal from that book series runs a path of force where he has a shield and a hammer, and one of his abilities in his path is to anchor himself to the floor. And that is inspiring me in the idea that when you have Goin Constructor, nothing should be able to knock you back. You should be able to stay in the fight, doing good damage. You should be knocking them back. And that is not present in the game. You get bounced around like a soccer ball, and it is really, really tough to stay in the fight. So those are just my initial thoughts with lots of gameplay to back it up. I'm gonna hop into a game and record it live, probably gonna use the footage I'm about to record, and you guys can get my raw, unfiltered thoughts from here on out. Let's go and use the perk and feel it out together. All right, hopping into an encampment right next to the objective. Let's check this out together. So I do have Flutter in support. I haven't talked about her at all. Basically, you throw Plasma Pulse, and then it gives you these little flutter flies that float around you, and they do some damage. It's fine. You can see it's not a lot. It's nice. You know, it's nice extra damage. That's why I feel like I'll be throwing down a Plasma Pulse at the beginning of these fights and then kind of just putting them away. And this is what I'm talking about. So you put away Goin Constructor and look at that cooldown in the bottom right. 33 seconds. This is what it's like to get that off cooldown. I'm not going to make a cut here because I want you to feel what I'm feeling here. You know, you can get some nice explosive kills. Thank you, AS407, for the suggestion. I was using the Storm King's Fury. I think this is the right weapon, but like, look, boom, 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 boom. All the enemies I'd like to kill are dead, and I still had a 7-second cooldown. That's terrible. So it took me long enough to find another encampment that I'm back out here. So hopefully we can get our little butterflies in action here. I dig it. How much damage is she doing, by the way? That was a pretty good Plasma Pulse. Is she gonna solo this? Hang on a second. Hey, look at that. Is she ended up pretty good? Is my next video gonna be an I was wrong titled video where she's in the commander slot? Because that was all right. I didn't even use the Chain Lightning on this weapon. So, okay, I just wasted my Goin Constructor. That happens sometimes. Here I am, bunch of enemies standing around. Let's just feel it out. I've always had a problem with this. There's one with lefty and righty, and probably something else that I'm forgetting, where you have to get kills to get your ability back. And I feel like that's terrible, because not only is it very slow and inefficient, but once you've actually gotten the kills, everything's dead. Everything you'd like to use your ability on is dead, and it doesn't even matter anymore. And that gives me another thought. if perchance there was a future where Goin Constructor no longer had any cooldown at all, Director Rigs could work a lot like Crackshot, where every single kill increased the damage. I mentioned that earlier, but say you never put Goin Constructor away. Say you were encouraged in that sense to live in the ability and enjoy that stacking damage. You know, maybe there's a crow super far away and you want to shoot it with a Xenon bow, but you don't want to use your Director Rig stacks because your Goin Constructor is doing a lot of extra damage right now. I feel like that would fundamentally change the way you play and be very, very balanced. And once again, I'm going to be saying this throughout the video, but here I am, surrounded by a bunch of enemies. I would love to use my commander perk. My commander is currently dead weight. He's doing nothing right now. There's no Goin Constructor, there's no Chain Lightning, and now everything's dead, and I still have 10 seconds on the cooldown. So, yeah. I think I made my point there, and I just spent a bunch of the intro talking about it. Let's go start the defense and see how this handles 250 power level enemies. All right, hopping straight into the defense here. I'm going to do this typical loop. I'm going to try and get Flutter active, and then hopefully Arlene Isa saves me. I need to get that Chain Lightning so bad or I'm dead, and that did not take. So, now I get to get revived and wait 50 seconds. So in times like these, I guess I can throw down that again. It is only eliminations from Plasma Pulse that actually activate Flutter, so I gotta be aware of that. And in order to get the cooldown reduced, I need to actually get kills with my melee, and it's just impossible to do that. Is this acid or slowing pools plus beehives? I can't get my cooldown off cooldown. I can't get my perk back, and now my teammate is dead as well. So now I've spent so long dying that I actually have my ability back, and I just left Archer on the ground. I'm a terrible teammate right now. Just trying to get something recorded for you guys. Here we go. All right. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Look at that. They just walk backwards. That's going in the intro of the video. They walk backwards, and your entire perk is... Look at this. It's exactly what I was talking about. You have to jump and, like, struggle to actually get a kill from an enemy that's right there. If you kill the enemies that are around you, now you have to go on this long walk, and you're off cooldown. That was my entire perk. That's my entire commander. That's everything he does. That is not okay. So this is an excellent scenario here. Actually, let's do the plasma pulse, and the critics cause an explosion. There we go. That's a dream scenario for getting my team perk, or my ability back. I keep saying team perk, but you hopefully know what I mean. My Goin Constructor back. So let's do that. Nice damage. Good. One Riot Husky is all it takes. This is exactly what I was talking about with the knockback. I feel like enemies shouldn't be knocking me around. I should be knocking them around. I'm Goin Constructor, ready to go crazy, and it just takes one Riot Husky supported by a nurse, and I am completely shut down. What is this? What was that? That was my entire commander perk. Stoneheart Pharaoh would have killed the whole thing. I know that not all commanders in Fortnite Save the World are made equal. That's not anything the game devs have ever tried to do, but it feels really tough to see a brand new hero come to the game. Obviously, Epic is trying to make this this ability viable, but it is not. Aura's basically on medic today. I asked them to, like, keep an eye on me so I could stay alive. All right, here we go. Got my ability out again. There we go. There we go. Now, I can hold the shield, and I can charge up that energy, and it looks like it's charged up now, and it does pretty decent damage. I can see that it works. You know, that's pretty good. Riot Huskies are just the bane of my existence. You can't kill him. He actually left. It's like he left in resignation. It was like, nah, you're not worth my time. It's like he gave up on me. I spent so long with the Riot Husky that it's gone already. My ability is gone. All right, let me get on these campfires. That's great. The explosion, thank you again, AS407, is well recommended because I can hit multiple targets. But if it's big, strong enemies like the fatties here, there's very little for me to kill. I'm just attacking normal. Thank goodness there aren't a bunch of smashers in this spawn, because this is bad. And again, I'm saying all this with critique for Epic. Like, they clearly wanted to make Goin Constructor viable. They updated it a couple years ago. Clearly they want people to try and use this perk. You know, they want to have an offensive build for... I'm gonna wait 2 more seconds just so I can drop down the... Oh, that is a misclick. I wanted to use Flutter. Okay, actually, let's just not use her. Let's charge up the energy. It should be glowing on the right-hand side. There we go. And then pretty strong damage. Okay, that was a propane. Hard to see. It's really, like, a lot going on. But I can block. I'm very safe. Charges up the energy. And can hit 8 enemies all at once. Nice and good for healing me. I mean, it's strong. One Riot Husky. It's a strong ability. Like, this is something I want to be using. If I didn't have to worry about cooldown, I could just take it out and put it down. That would be fantastic. But right now, if one zapper wants to stand a little too far back, this perk is completely shut down. So I can be the first to say, maybe it's a skill issue. I don't run constructors all the time, but look at this. If they're just walking backwards and I'm dead, what am I supposed to do? Archer with the pickup. Thank you so much. All right, let's pull out the ability. Full health. You know, we hit one enemy. Chain lightning did okay. And then I can charge up an energy blast. This should just be energy by default. I'm saying it right now. Like, that should not be worth it. One Riot Husky. One Riot Husky, and it's a dead ability. Oh, good. Yeah. Mini boss. This is another situation where if you're trying to use this for damage, a mini boss is just not gonna, you're not gonna make any progress with a 16-second uptime. It's just not gonna happen. Like, that mini boss, I need to just not participate in. And I can tell you, the Husk Stomper, barely boosted, isn't gonna be making much progress either. So let's try and get that cooldown reduced. You are not gonna be something I can deal with. All right, see, it happened right there. It activated the kinetic overdrive where I knocked the enemies backwards, and it made it so that my next couple of swings were wasted. So while it, you know, okay, in the past, I've been very critical of impact. I have never been a fan. I have always frowned upon it because I would rather kill the enemies than see what's happening now. I feel like the enemies should be right there in my face where I can actually do something about them, not being pushed out of my way. And in that case, it's exactly what I've been talking about. Impact happened where the enemy got nudged out of my range, and instead of doing more damage in my next couple of swings, I did not. And I mean, this is a great example of when the ability can be really, really strong. When there's not a shield in my way and a Riot Husky shutting me down and I'm actually able to stay alive, it's really good damage. It's a really interesting ability, and I want to use Goin Constructor. It's fun. But look at that. I charge up for 2 seconds, I walk 3 tiles, and then it's completely on cooldown again. It's just, I'm waiting. I just have to kill with this weapon, which is fine. It does some stuff. And I'd love to be using my fun new hero. Love to be using, I just unlocked him, but a nurse who's not even looking at me walks a little too quickly, and I can't even follow her. All right, here we go. I can drop the plasma pulse, back off, die trying to put down a healing pad, get revived by a teammate, and I'm back in the action. So here we go. I can block. I'm staying alive. The energy goes into play. Very strong. I mean, that's pretty good. You just start swinging through the crowd of enemies and everything dies. Up until a healing, not a healing hoe. That was up until a throwing thought walks backwards too quickly. And now I'm in a stuck position where I'm too far away from the enemies to do anything, and the cooldown is too short for me to be meaningful in the, oh, I'm wrong. Look at that. I must have killed enough basic enemies to actually get some work done, but then she just survives. So you guys can see, I spent the first, 5 to 8 minutes of this video kind of ranting and giving constructive feedback on what I believe would make Goin Constructor better. And I'm hoping this gameplay has sort of proved my point. Like, this is a good perk. In fact, prior to this recording here, I did actually experience some decent moments, some of which I've been able to share in this gameplay here. But you can see that it is just like a dead perk most of the time. With my skill set and how this game is going, it's like 90% of the time Goin Constructor is just useless. It's doing nothing here. Look at that. The enemies stand a little too far back and just out of range. That almost happened. I killed the zapper there, but he was about to be in a scenario where he was walking too briskly for me to even hit him. Then I did hit him. I hit him with impact, so it knocked him out of my range. And then it was even harder to kill one basic zapper. That cannot be okay. So, yeah, it's really, really tricky to recommend using this hero right now. It's really, really tricky to even consider Goin Constructor to be viable. If I did something completely wrong, comment down below. I'll take a loadout suggestion if it's convincing. Maybe I can redo this video showing that I was wrong all along and this is actually fantastic. But I cannot see how this is viable. Unfortunately, I had very little Mist monster time in that game. The one Zappy face we saw just got annihilated, and I did test this versus Smashers in a prior game, and it was what you could expect. They are just not going to die from it. It's just not enough damage. The chain lightning is useless versus a single target with nothing to bounce off of, so it's just tough. It's just tough. So I don't know if Epic is going to do anything to Goin Constructor. They just added an entire hero meant to be boosting that ability. Hopefully, if they make some decent changes, it could be a really fun perk. I think it'd be fun to run a Constructor some game and be in Goin Constructor for 80% of the defense. That would be super fun. You could use it to kill some enemies, put it away to run to the next crowd, pull it out right away, get back into the action. I think that'd be super fun. And with no cooldown and no knockback on the player, you'd be able to free up this support perk and this support perk, or maybe even use an updated director rigs to actually do more damage or something like that instead, you'd actually be able to make a much more viable build and have a lot more fun. So that's it. I'm out of here. That's my review. I barely covered Flutter, but she is really simple. You saw her. You throw down a Plasma Pulse, and then you get some extra area of effect damage. It's pretty nice. Maybe she's worth a Commander Showcase. I don't know, but I'm focusing on, I actually forgot his name, on Hotwire right now. So that's my review. Subscribe, like the video. Horde videos coming out. I'll see you guys later, and that's it. Goodbye. And then